Hi guys, welcome back to GRS University. I'm Molly Lisa, and I got a haircut. Let's move on. Today we want to talk about replacing the tubing in your machine. It should not be yellow. Let's go talk about that. Hi guys, we're back with Greg Gentry. He's our repair technician here at GRS, and today he's going to talk to you about your tubing maintenance in your machine.
Thank you. Today we're going to talk about maintaining the hose that's part of the air supply system inside of your machine. It's a urethane hose that needs to be inspected from time to time, generally several years, but it's always good to go inside and look in your machine and try to do some preventative maintenance in advance of a busy season, or if you've just got some time, or especially if it's been a long time since you've been inside the machine. So I'm going to show you how to identify and remove the old hose, cut the new hoses to length, put them in the correct place, and insert the centered plug for your pressure gauge. Maybe take a look at the rotary valve at the same time so that your machine will run at peak performance, especially when you need it the most. I'd like to show you the easiest way to get inside the case of your machine. I have this conversation quite often, but if you take your Allen wrench and you loosen the screws at the bottom of your case, these don't have to come out. You'll find 3 on the long side. Of each side of this. Turn them out a turn and a half or so, just so they're loose. That way you don't have to keep track of them. Same thing on the back panel, just about a turn and a half out. I don't know how many times this has happened to you, but you may be working, chugging right along, and then it feels like your handpiece may be losing power, which could be a couple things, but one of it could be an air leak or something wrong with your hoses because they've gotten old. But the real textbook symptom of an air leak inside your machine is always going to be if your handpiece runs on its own without depressing the foot throttle. That's an air leak of some kind, and what we're going to look at today is the possibility that that air leak may be coming from one of the hoses inside your machine. So we're going to take out these upper screws on the faceplate. You probably notice this is a larger screw on the front of a graver mark. There's a metal plate back there that we used a longer screw and had a bigger head. But then these on the top of the back plate, these will come all the way out. And what this is going to give you is complete access inside the machine, so you're not trying to reach through a small panel on the side or the top. But for me, the biggest reason I do it this way is because these 3 side panels and these aluminum tubes are a little challenging to square up when you're finished. So this just makes it easy, gives you full access, and we're ready to change some hoses. So you see inside here, somebody's already started this process. This is a newer hose. I see this all the time where they haven't used the bias valve very much, and so it's still in really good shape. But these hoses have yellowed. This is the 050002 hose that we're going to use inside all of our machines, past the power regulator. Before the power regulator, it's an 050029 hose. It's this section right here. You'll probably see in the literature or in your machine if you open it up, it's a black hose, but it's mostly just a thick hose. And in a lot of our literature, it calls it a black hose, but the manufacturer that we get this from now makes the same hose, it's just clear. So when you see black hose in your literature, we're really talking about the 050009. It's just a thicker walled hose than the 050002. So what we will do is, if we're going to replace the high pressure hose that comes from the input into your power regulator, we're just going to cut it to size. It's an approximate size. You don't have to be too concerned about it, but get it pretty close to the right size. And then just put it right back where you found it. And that is your high pressure hose going into your power regulator. Coming out of your power regulator into your air pressure tank, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna take the old hose, we're gonna square off that end a little bit better. And we're gonna give it a match. You can be picky, but as long as it's the same size or, I don't know, go a little longer if you want to. See, I left the fitting in the same orientation. It goes up over, and you can see around behind the wires of the electrical input. Then coming out of the air tank into your auxiliary valve, the bottom of the auxiliary valve, this one's missing, generally has a wire clamp. I don't know the part number off the top of my head, but call me and I can get you that. But this slips over the auxiliary valve. Just like that, comes over these hoses and back into your air tank. And the short one here, coming out of your air tank into your auxiliary valve, same thing, you're just gonna cut a piece of 050002. You could get a roll of 050002, and I'll show you why too in a minute, and hang it on your wall, put it on your pegboard, keep it in a drawer. It's not very expensive. It is a hose we use for a majority things, like the foot throttle. This is the foot throttle inlet. Always goes to the center of your rotary valve. Again, just make sure it's long enough. You can always cut more, you can never cut less. And this goes to that's your inlet for your foot throttle. While we're talking about the foot throttle too, this is the foot throttle hose. It's 6 feet long. This is, again, 050002. It just pulls off of the back of your outlet valve assembly. This is 6 feet long. So I spread my condor wings out. It doesn't quite go 6 feet. We just measured against the old hose. These are engineered lengths too on the foot throttle. I know a lot of people like to put a 10, 12 foot piece of hose on their foot throttle because it's convenient for what's at your bench, but you'll lose power. There could be some things that aren't good about putting on too much hose on your foot throttle. So now we've got a clear line into the foot throttle from the foot throttle in through the machine. The last piece of hose comes from your tank into your pressure gauge. And when you pull this off, you'll notice there's a disc inside there. We call it a sintered plug. Sintered is a metallurgy term. But what it does is it stops the needle from bouncing. It buffers the pressure so you can get a good needle reading. So a sintered plug looks like this. It's just a small metal disc. The way that I use them is I put it on the table, I drive it in, just woggle it right on there. It's a tight fit, but of course it has to be for it to buffer. And then I use my T-handled Allen wrench just to push it in. Just kind of gently between my fingers in the hose there. And once again, it has a distance we're trying to reach. It's an engineered spacing. Match it up with your old hose. Let's get it in there a little bit further. Do we have a good match? Yeah, that's good. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure it's all square in there. Like that. Then I'll cut this to length. The sintered plug goes towards the gauge and then in the back port of the air tank. The one we haven't changed here is the bias valve. Your bias valve hoses will look a lot different in different incarnations of the bias valve. There's different size hoses, there's some different connections. If you have something that looks different than this, don't worry about it. Just give me a call, we'll work it out. But in this particular Graver mock, it's just as simple as every other push fitting that we changed. This This is a good one too while we got it. You'll see that this hose wasn't very well used, say, compared to this hose. This engraver jeweler doesn't use this bias valve very much, but you'll still get some discoloration down at the bottom of these hoses at the end. That is extremely common. I would say that this hose is probably still in pretty good shape, but there's no reason to, in a preventive maintenance sense, to go into and change your front bicycle tire tube and not your back bicycle tire tube if you're getting ready for a race. While you're in here fixing up the tubes, change them all. This will last you for a long time, so you can go into a worry-free holiday season or show season or just your regular business with complete confidence that your machine's going to work well. So, give a last tug on everybody, make sure they're nice and tight. Yep, that looks pretty good. You can just put your cover right back on. Now this has an orientation, it has a front and a back, so that is out of alignment. This is wrong because the screws didn't line up. So all you gotta do is flip it around and it'll fall right back into place. Then you just tighten it up in reverse order. You know, I'm actually gonna put the screws in the top first, so while it's loose, it's easier to find those tapped holes inside the aluminum rails. Just get it started. Just get them started again. Pretty well in there. Two in the front while it's nice and loose. Sometimes if you need to line up a hole, you can use your Allen wrench, like a hole finder. And then I'm trying to get that, there we go. Just get them going. Now that everything's well aligned, you can go around and tighten down all your screws, hook your machine back up. And that little bit of preventive maintenance will last you for quite some time. If you have any questions during the process, of course, you can call me. I'm glad to help you with any kind of this. The hose is readily available. You can get it from your sales representative. If you have questions about the numbers, the style, the types, just give me a call. Be glad to help you out. But you are ready for whatever comes your way as far as your air supply goes to the machine.
Okay, thank you, Greg. So while people have their machine open, what else would you suggest looking at?
During this time, this would be a perfect time to clean your rotary valve. This is your rotary valve here. We've got a YouTube video that describes this. We may do another one again, but this is your rotary valve. You can clean it with alcohol and Q-tips. And while you're in there, clean the rotor. You might have some black marks on it. Just wipe it all down and keep it clean. Keep track of this little nylon washer that's at the bottom there that this rides on against that steel flywheel, but this would be a really good time to clean that.
Okay, so there's a lot of tubing and wiring going on inside of here. If it's too overwhelming for someone, what do you suggest they do?
It can be kind of it could take some time, can be kind of a busy job, and this isn't even an AT. If you've got a Graver Mach AT, there is a lot more hose inside there and it's a lot more complicated. If you want to, just send it to me. I'll be glad to do it. And when I have it, I'll not only change the hose, but I'll probably take your tank off. I'll go through and check the O-rings inside of this two-way valve. I'll do a lot more than change the hose, but if you need me to, I'll be glad to do it for you.
Okay. What if I know that I need to maintenance my machine, but I just don't have the time? We're really busy at the shop. What do you think we should do then?
If you're a busy shop, you're definitely going to send it to me. I think one of the things I've been promoting a lot lately is the idea that get some kind of a backup system. I mean, look at the Graver Smith, for example. It's a great backup machine. You can get another one of exactly what you've got. But especially for a busy shop where you make all of your money or you have multiple jewelers or engravers inside your shop and your business depends on turning that product out the door, you really want to think about a backup system. That way when something comes up like just general maintenance, or if something falls off a shelf, or something, we have a water incursion because of a climactic change, you can pull your other machine off of the shelf, your other foot throttle off the shelf, and you can put that artist right back to work. Send me the equipment. I'll send it back to you in a brand new packaging, like it's a brand new box. You can put it up on the shelf, and then when it's time for that machine to be maintenance, you can send it in to me and take this one down and set it up, and you've got almost no downtime.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Make my job easy. This week's suggested Instagram user is Richard Quickie. Richard has been engraving for not very long, but he's been a tattoo artist for almost 20 years. So it's always really interesting to see that artistry transforming to the metal. Go check out both of his profiles. He has Quickie the Engraver, and he also has Quickie the Tattooer. Check them both out, and then if you want to be our next suggested Instagram user, tag us at GRS Tools on your next Instagram post. Like us, follow us, then go like and follow us some more on all of our other social media platforms, and then throw those comments below on what you want to see next time. That's it, guys. Plain and simple.